All right. So, once again, we're going to be taking and diving right into our class project, which is going to be Coffee Cafe. Here is this scenario. Now, this is how I prefer to work as this kind of setting. It's going to be a little difficult because we will be moving through a lot of pages. It's a lot of flipping back through a bunch of pages, but this is the generally way how we would do manual bookkeeping, all right? And especially when, we're a small company and we have to handle multiple positions and multiple hats. So as the accountant, you're responsible to oversee every single person's, position, because you want to ensure that whatever information that you're given, right, that they did their work, and you're going to double check it. And as the bookkeeper, you're going to just record the transaction. So once again, you have the journal, okay? The journal, if you are using the Excel, you're going to notice that there's a calendar, the chart of accounts, right? You have your journal, then you have your check register and your deposits and stuff and your purchase orders. So that's already one worksheet. Now, of course, if you're using the Word file, right, I would actually recommend you to just print out your chart of accounts so you can have that on the side, so that you can look at that. And then from there, you don't ever need to have the chart of accounts open as a file. If you already printed out a copy, so you can just use that to go ahead and help you properly journalize your transaction. Okay, so so we're going to be looking at the accounting cycle. All right, like I've mentioned before, we're going to be practicing the first 5 steps, right? Our first one is to collect our source document, which here in our scenarios is going to be our step number 1. Okay? Once we have, so we have our step number 1. Now the second thing we're going to do is we got to analyze the material, or analyze the transaction, and utilize the transaction analysis to figure out how we're going to journalize this, right? And of course, the ending step to the transaction analysis is to journalize it in your journal. In this case, for this class and this class only, there's only one book that we're going to use, all right, which is just the general journal, which if you download the Excel, you're going to see that there's about 30 pages. So once again, as we go through each week, I will be uploading new pages for the journal. So you will be following along with me every week when we enter in our new transaction, or, jotting down our journals. Okay. Then the next step that we're going to take a look at is posting to our general ledger, right? We've seen glimpses before. We've recognized what it does, and we've learned the difference between the ledger and the journal, right? So basically, the ledger is essentially another journal. However, you're going to be calculating a running balance, okay? And as we fill out our ledger, you're going to notice how the idea of a normal balance works, okay? So everything that you've learned so far, as we piece everything together, everything's going to start making more sense than it did from the very beginning of class. So once again, when we plug in our numbers into the ledger, that's where the normal balance comes from. That's where every time we enter in a debit, it will increase our value. Every time we enter in a credit, it will decrease our value, or vice versa, right? If we're looking at a liability, if we credit it, it will increase. If we debit it, it will decrease. So this is where we're gonna get to take a look at that, because we will be exercising using the ledger, okay? And of course, I've also am going to be introducing to you guys the subsidiary ledger. Subsidiary ledger is going to be the people that are involved with your company. So again, when we let our customers owe us money, How do we keep track of that? Well, here you go. You have a separate special book, which in this case allows us to keep track of our customers, right? Usually you would have their customer information. So let's look at customers. And you would have notes, invoices, right? If you give them terms, when their due dates are, and exactly what their sales receipt or invoice, how much they owe you in grand total. So once you notice this, right? This is how we keep track of our customers, right? And that also goes for our vendors. Our vendors are going to be treated exactly the same. And I'm going to teach you how to use this subsidiary ledger to your advantage, all right? I'm going to show you how to fill it out at the same time as how you're going to be able to calculate what your ending balance is, so then you know how much your total customer owes you and how much the total that you owe to your vendors. Okay, so any vendor, whether they provide for you a service, whether they are a supplier, or they are an independent contractor, someone that you pay to work for you but aren't under your payroll system, a 1099 worker, independent contractor, whatever type of employee, right? Those are all, not type of employee, vendor. Those are all going to be considered vendors to you. Anybody that provides a service or provides some kind of supply for you. So we're going to be taking a look at a few vendors, okay? And of course, if you have the Excel file, you're going to be introduced the employees as well. Now, I think this table here is my favorite table because it makes doing the payroll process 10 times easier than it would by manually calculating it on a piece of paper. This, right, you just plug in your numbers, plug in your formulas, and boom, 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 it's going to calculate the information for you, okay? And I've also provided the table, of course, for that. And we're also going to be taking a look at someone that we hire as a commission-based worker, and we're going to calculate their commissions that they've earned. So there's a lot of things that we're going to take a look at, so that's just the subsidiary ledger. For those who are working on the Word file, we're not going to touch employees until the second week, okay? Again, the workbooks that we're working on, okay? I will let you know which books you need before we start the class, okay? For now, we're just using these three main ones. So for those who are using Word, we're using the check register, and we're using the subsidiary ledger and the ledger and the journal. Okay, so we're going to take a look at how we are going to properly do the transactions for a typical company, okay? For a small business owner-owned company. All right, so once again, I can't assume that you guys have multiple monitors, multiple screens, or anything, so whichever way it helps you set up this way, right? I recommend, if you'd like, you can print out the scenario so you have it on the side and you can flip over while you enter your information in the computer. That is probably the best efficient way you can do it. Now for me, in order to show this on your screen, I'm just going to split screen it, okay? So I'm going to have it overlaying and overlapping one another, okay? And I'm just going to flip through by setting my, workbook side to side. Now, of course, yes, you can, if you'd like, split screen all of your Excel workbooks in one screen, but be mindful, because if you're trying to have all 7 workbooks open and you're split screening them or viewing them all at once, it can become a hindrance to you because, of how much space you have on your screen. So I like to work 2 at a time. And on top of that, since I'm also working with a Word document, Unfortunately, Excel can only do Excel spreadsheets. It cannot do any other Microsoft program. So I can't do Word and have it split screen with my Excel file. Okay, so that's just a downside there. But however, this is how I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you going through each one step by step, and we're going to go through the first 2 weeks together, and then week 3, week 4, week 5, for any transactions that we've never seen before, or well, we have seen before, but we're working together, right? I'm not going to stray you away. I'm going to just ask you questions on so you guys can kind of solve it for yourself. Okay, but for this occasion here, I am going to help work with you guys for the first 2 weeks, but we're also going to do a class discussion, right? I'm going to ask you, should you journalize this transaction? Why? Etc., etc. So that is the introduction, right? We did this part yesterday, but let's go ahead and dive right into our scenario and let's get started. Okay, so again, here's the scenario on my left side of the page. So again, you don't need it necessarily on the side because I will be having it on my screen at all times. However, like I said, it's going to be kind of hard to go back and forth to the scenario on my screen, so it would help if you could have it somewhere near you. Okay. All right, so once again, let's get started. So here, introduction to Coffee Cafe, okay? Bob, okay? All right, Bob Mason, okay, wants to open up a small coffee shop in his local neighborhood, okay? Once again, he gets advice on how to start up a company, obviously, right? You can't just be like, wake up one day and be like, I want to start a business, right? No, he seeks professional advice on how to get a business started, okay? And of course, he does his research, okay? And looking at his area to see which places are, the good places to do business. Especially, that should be something that you should do, especially when you open up a business. How busy is this area? Do people come by and stop by? Is this I guess, a local area where only local people come through? Or is it is it somewhere on, for example, the Strip, right? Do a lot of people drive by it? You definitely want to do your research, especially doing your business, right? You don't want to just dive right in and say, I'm just going to pick a store right next door to my house and that will be the best thing. No, you have to look at how feasible it is to enter into your store, right? Is it a area that people primarily go to very often, okay? So there's a lot of details and work into setting up your business, and that's what Bob did. He did his research. He seeks professional advice on how to start up a company, right? Now, again, he also decided to ask you, okay, to intern for him to help him properly keep his books, all right? Okay, of course, and he has $30,000 to invest into his company, okay? So in this case, because you're interning, the assumption is you're not getting paid for this. You're just doing this for, educational purposes. Now, of course, he's starting off a small business. He can't technically pay you. And on top of that, you don't have the degree or license to be able to go ahead and do bookkeeping. So this is a perfect opportunity for you to learn and to intern to see how to properly record a business transaction. So once again, perfect opportunity, perfect scenario, right? So here's one thing that you need to know. He's got $30,000 to invest into his company. Okay? And let's go ahead and take a look here. So again, set up your chart of accounts, okay? General journals and general ledger accounts. So once again, I've already done that for you. right? I've provided you the chart of accounts. So let's go ahead and take a look at the chart of accounts. Once again, it is in order by account type, okay? So every account that you do see here on here is going to be everything that you need for this project, okay? We're not going to be adding any accounts. We're not going to be making up any accounts. But the purpose of you using the chart of accounts is to determine how you're going to organize your business transaction. So I've already done the work for you, right? I've already created the chart of accounts. I've already created the general ledgers, which is a list of every single account that exists in your chart of accounts with their respective running balances. I've already set up a journal for you. Okay, so all you really need now is to have this somewhere on the side, because again, this is how, when we look at a transaction, right, we collect our source document, this is how you're going to analyze your data, right? You're going to look through the chart of accounts to see if there's something significant or if there's an account that exists that describes your transaction. And you're going to use the debit and credit system. So make sure that you have your little accounting model, you know, the little image with the arrows on it, because that is also going to help you to determine how you're going to journalize your journal. And of course, we've also looked at this too in chapter 3. Our number one rule here is when we look at a journal and we journalize it, we must have our debits and credits match at all times. Okay, so that's a lot of rules that we just took a look at, and this is how we're going to apply them. Okay, so once again, you're going to be using the chart of accounts to fit your transactions and organize them in a way that will allow you to organize your business transactions. Okay, so here's a list of all of your account assets. Okay, a list of all of your liabilities, a list of all your equities, why we don't have many, a list of all of your expenses, and then of course all of your revenues are here as well. So in this case, I split my expenses into two sections, right? Cost of goods sold and then my operating expenses, just because the expenses itself already was too long of a list. So I just, split them up to make it a little more easier for you to go through when we go through the ledger itself. Okay, so and here we have a list of a lot of assets that we're going to be taking a look at. So once again, this is something that you should definitely have available, because this is how we're going to exercise how to properly journalize our transaction. Okay. All right. We already set up our chart of accounts, we already have our journal, and we have our ledger, so we are ready to go. Okay? All right, so on the 31st of May, Friday, okay, Bob's friend, okay, from the bank, okay, tells him about a small coffee shop business, okay, and it's filing for bankruptcy and is currently short selling on the market. So he's pretty much saying, hey, Bob, this is your perfect opportunity. There's already a pre-existing coffee shop and it's going bankrupt. So why don't you buy the business? Okay. So we have an insider saying, hey, let's go buy the business. So then on the 31st of May, right? Of course, because the business went bankrupt, right? It still has assets, okay? And of course, it's already a pre-existing coffee shop. So the layout and the design, right, the area of the location, it's already set to be a coffee shop, all right? So what this short sale includes is going to be furniture, some leftover furniture that's worth $4,000. Someone already appraised it. There's a pre-existing coffee brewer, okay, that's worth $1,900. And of course, we have to purchase the business name because it is a pre-existing coffee shop. Now, if you're buying a business that's from ground zero, like it is not supposed to be a coffee shop, um, then you don't need to buy the business name. But in this case, we are going to continue its operations as a coffee shop. So in this case, we need to buy the business name, and we're going to consider that to be goodwill. Okay, so when you go into more advanced levels of accounting, you're going to understand what goodwill is. Goodwill usually comes when you buy a business for lower than its market value. Okay, so therefore you gain a profit out of it, and by doing so, you can either gain some kind of value to it or a business name. So in this case, that's exactly what we did. We're buying this company, right, because it is being bankrupt. So therefore, we're buying and pretty much saving this company. But however, right, if the owner wants nothing to do with it and we're going to take over the company, therefore, we need to make these purchases. Okay? So here, the total amount just to purchase this entire business cost us $8,000. Okay? So, as of Friday, May 31st, we did our first transaction. So, question to you. Can we properly journalize this?
Not until we get bank accounts.
Good job. Nicole already recognized one thing. We need to open a bank account to even begin recording our business transactions. But on top of that, that's the only reason that allows us to run our business, right? You need to start somewhere, and the best place to start is by opening a bank account. Okay? So in this case, we may have these minor transactions. However, we cannot record it yet because we don't have a bank account. So good job. Good recognition, okay? So since we don't have a bank account, therefore, this is just information that we need to hold on to because we will eventually journalize this, okay? But for now, we don't have a business bank account, so therefore, cannot record this, okay? You can technically record it as a personal transaction. However, what's that one rule that we need to understand? What is that one?
We can't mix the two, personal and business, together.
Correct. So the best way to do that is to open up a business bank account separate from your personal bank account. Okay? No one in their rightful mind is going to have $30,000 walking around in their pocket. So obviously, this is from their personal bank. But once again, you cannot record this transaction anywhere because it is the first mistake is that you will be technically mixing your personal with your business. So in this case, can't start recording yet. All right.
I have a question though.
Go for it.
You have the total amount of the business being 8,000. Does that even include the building? I mean, what exactly are we buying?
Okay, so when we talk about the building, right? What usually comes with the building? What normal expense do you always occur when it comes to the building?
The land.
The land, okay. More so what happens if you're trying to occupy a space? What do you call that?
The stuff that's inside it.
Okay, so this is the stuff that's inside the business. Yes.
Maybe the rent expense.
The rent expense. So in this case, no. The cost for the to rent out the building is not included in this.
Okay, that's why I figured. I just wanted to make sure I was seeing it right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So in this case, we're just buying what is left of the company that they're trying to get rid of whatever it is, right? They're filing for bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. And here we're just buying what the business already has. You're not technically going to buy the building. The building's not on sale. It's just the company itself. Okay? So they left us with furniture, they left us with a brewer, and they left us with their name. Okay? So, right? So then, here on June 3rd, we decided to apply for a DBA name, okay? DBA stands for doing business as. So if you ever applied for a business license or a business name itself, there are three options that you can choose from, right? LLC, corporation, or DBA. A DBA could be whatever you'd like to file as, whether it's a sole proprietor, partnership, a nonprofit organization, or whatever other business organizations that you want to do business as. That's what DBA stands for. So in this case, we decided to file for a court cost to change the name of the business, because right now it's something something coffee shop, right? We want to change the name to make it legal to use coffee cafe. So in this case, they're going to charge me $25 to file a court fee to change the name and basically have it licensed to use coffee cafe. All right. So in this case, it cost me $25. All right. Can I record this?
No.
Not yet. Nope. But it's just definitely good to know, because here's the idea here. We're only applying for the DBA name, all right? It takes time for you to actually receive the proper form with the proper letter, with the proper, seal of approval to let you know this is legitimate, authorized from whatever agency you're coming from, right? The state, that you are legally going to be doing business as Coffee Cafe. All right. So once again, you're just applying. Okay. All right. Then Tuesday, June 4th rolls around, and here are the things that you're going to apply for. You're going to apply for the Nevada state license or business license, okay, which costs you $250 to obtain, okay, and to file, of course. And we're also going to file it to the city business license as well. So remember, you need to apply to both the state and the city that you are doing your business in, because once again, it depends on what county you belong into, right? Because the city determines what taxes you need to file to. And on top of that, you also need to register your business in this prospective state that you are planning to do your business in. So again, you need to apply this to both the state and the city, okay? And again, those costs to file, right? It cost me $250 to apply for the state, and it cost me $100 to apply for the city, okay? And once again, here is a copy, right? We're going to do business as Coffee Cafe. It's going to be considered a sole proprietorship, okay? And of course, the business owner is Mr. Bob Mason. The date that we applied was June 4th. The information, whether the location, so we're going to be renting out that little location. And of course, contact information. You need to have some contact information, or else you can, how are they going to be able to send you or be able to contact you about your business, okay? So here, we're just sending in an application for both the state and the city. So we don't have the permit just yet, but we are applying for it, okay, right? Once again, takes anywhere from 7 to 10 business days to fully approve from the state and the city, okay? Nowadays, you apply online, you can get it anywhere from between 3 to 5 business days, okay? Right, so you don't have to go to a local agency or a local office. You can apply directly online. So, awesome. Okay. All right. So then on June 4th, we decided to finally open our business bank account, okay, at our main bank of Nevada. So here are the things that we have encountered so far. We've encountered, right, that we have a checking account. Now we have to fill in out our information because now we can validate a transaction has happened because we finally opened up our business bank account. So here is the first transaction, right? We have a checking account, right? We're going to dump whatever extra money that we have from our $30,000 and we're going to dump it back and we're going to dump it into our checking account. Things that we've encountered was we purchased the business for $8,000, which entailed furniture, a coffee brewer, and we talked about this, goodwill, which is also known as the business name. We've also incurred a business license and permit expense, right? Because we had to buy the license to do business. And we also are going to include any extra costs and fees it took for us to be able to get that license. Okay, so here it is. That's our very first journal for the day. So let's go ahead and enter in this transaction. So first things first, always is the date. Okay. So June 4th. Okay. Now let's go ahead and utilize our chart of accounts. Okay, because now since I've already did this for you, right, I'm giving you an idea of what has happened here. Let's go ahead and check if these accounts exist. So, does my checking account exist? What account number is that?
10100.
1010. Okay, so 10100. Okay, good. Let's see what else is there. Furniture. What is furniture considered? Okay.
Asset?
It's an asset. So, do we have a furniture account?
Yes.
1300.
Yes, 1300. What about a coffee brewer?
That's equipment?
It's going to be under equipment, yes. Coffee brewer, 15010, good. And what about goodwill? What would goodwill be?
An asset?
Good.
1900.
Good. So here, 19100, right? This is going to be considered an other asset because can you physically touch a business name?
No.
Of course not. You can't touch it. Okay? There's legal documentations that protect the name, but can you actually physically touch it? No. So it's going to be goodwill is going to always be an intangible type of asset. Okay? And then last but not least, do we have actually second to last, do we have a license and permit expense?
$60600.
60600. Good. So we do have a license and permit expense. And last but not least, right? If this is our original investment in our company, right? We must have owner's equity. Okay? 30,000. Right? Right there. So we do have all the accounts and they do exist. So therefore, we could properly now journalize it. Okay? So how do we journalize it? Okay? So let's go ahead and properly do this. So the first thing we're going to recognize is we're going to dump money into our checking account. Are we increasing the money in our checking or are we decreasing it?
We're dumping it in, so we're going to increase it. We're going to debit it.
We're going to debit it. Correct. So again, checking 10100 for how much? Obviously, we made some cash expenditures, right? We paid things here and there. So therefore, how much leftover money should I have at the end of the day after occurring the furniture, the coffee brewer, the license, and the business name?
The 21,625.
21,625. So for here, your journal should be formatted with your 2 decimal places. But if you want to change it anyway, that's what you could do that. It's fair game. Right, these are your worksheets. If you want to make them prettier, you may change the colors, whatever you want to do. Okay. So here we acquired furniture. Okay? So if we acquired furniture, did we increase or did we decrease?
Decrease?
Do you say decrease? Okay, we gained furniture, so we purchased furniture.
Increase.
We increased our furniture, right? Because now we have furniture when we didn't have it before. And this time we're increasing it, so we're going to debit it by the $4,000. Because that's how much it was at the time of purchase. I purchased it at $4,000, okay? In this case, here's a little notion here. I purchased the furniture because it came with the business, right? What I'm going to do with this furniture, since it's not a specific furniture that I want to use, right? I don't want to use leftover furniture from a previous business, so I'm going to get rid of it. So in this case, I don't care to specify what furniture it is. So I'm just going to keep it at furniture because I'm going to get rid of it. What about my coffee brewer? Did I purchase a coffee brewer, or did I got rid of a coffee? I gained it, correct. So in this case, am I going to debit or credit?
Debit.
I'm going to debit it. So my coffee brewer was, I think 15,010. I think that's what it was, 15,010. And I'm going to increase it by 1,900 because that's what I purchased it for. And then goodwill, okay, business name, right? I acquired an intangible asset, so therefore I will definitely increase it, which is the 19,100, okay? And I got that for 2,100, okay? Last but not least, since my license and permit, right, I just combined them all together because at the end of the day, I don't need to separate each actual transaction. I can just place them all into one account. So here, I'm going to place them all as my license and permit expense. Okay?
And that was 6,600.
Okay? Now, here's a rule of thumb here. For the journal, you definitely do not want to abbreviate. As much as it seems it's easy to do, for this class, I'll let you abbreviate however you want. But in most cases, when you do journalize it, you want to journalize the exact account name. Because especially you don't want to use abbreviations because sometimes if you're not the person that's reading your journal and someone else is and they can't decipher your acronyms, then that's going to cause a problem. So rule of thumb is you should generally type out exactly what the account name is, okay? And of course, you also have a reference point by the actual account number. So in this case, this was 6,600 for the total of 375, right? That was 200 for the state, 100 for the local city, and then $75 for the court cost. Okay, so there we have. Oh, sorry, it's $250 for the state. Okay, so there we have it, and of course we have one more account, which is going to be our credit account, right? Because all of this in grand total is equal to my original investment, which another word for original investment or the value of your company should be $30,000. Okay, so again, we recognize this as owner's equity because that's what my total cost of the business is worth. It is worth $30,000. Okay, so again, other ways that you could do this, you could either just type it in, but in this case, because I've already solved it for you, I would definitely recommend you to utilize the equal sum just to ensure that you didn't fat finger or made any typos along the way, because that's very easy to do, especially, of course, we're typing everything in. But I often like to use the equal sum just to ensure that I do get that number that I want. So in this case, I added up my totals and I get $30,000 as my owner's equity. Okay. So you can, okay, so in this description, I just wrote a description. The description could be whatever you'd like to say. So once again, you could do very short, sweet, and simple. I generally like to be sweet and simple, but have enough details so you can recognize what this transaction is. But in this case, I wrote that you have the court cost of $25. The Nevada state license was $250. The city license is $100, and the purchase of the business was $8,000. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna type in here. So court was $25. NV license was $250. City was $100. And then purchased business for $8,000. And of course, you can end your parentheses there. Right? So to me, at least I know what my, license and permit expense was, and I can see from here that the business, right, was the furniture, the coffee brewer, and the name totaled up to be $8,000. Okay. So there we have it, our very, very first journal. 3 things that we have here is we properly journalized it with our debits and credits. We properly have a description of what this transaction was. Our debits and credits equal on both sides, so we have an equal amount of debits equaling our total of credits, okay? And we have the date, and so this is a perfect example of completing a journal transaction, okay? All right. Any questions in regards to writing our very first journal? Okay. Now, of course, writing our journal is one thing. There are a lot of things that we have to also consider, such as we made our bank deposit. That's the very first thing we just did. We just made our very first bank deposit. So if you go to deposits, right, the receipt is going to be whatever money that you've collected, and then the date, and then, of course, your deposit. So in this case, I made my very first deposit of the $21,625. Okay, so these ones you may have to format however you like. Whether you like using the accounting style or whether you like to use comma style, it doesn't matter. Okay, the date is June 4th, of course, and I successfully deposited a grand total of $21,625. Okay, our very first deposit. We didn't write a check yet, so there's no check for us to write out yet because we finally put money into the banking account. So when you do that, they automatically will send you in the mail your business checkbook. Okay, and of course we haven't even done a purchase order yet. So we only deposited our money for the first time. So therefore, that is something that we need to record. Okay. All right. So that's finishing up our journal. Okay. Now, I want to teach you this and I want you to ingrain this into your steps because I want to make sure that we don't miss a step, nor we always know what kind of balance that we have in our checking account. So therefore, this is where after we complete our journal, I want you to go straight to your general ledger. Okay? I want you to journalize and post to the ledger exactly how you see in your journal, because that's the purpose, right? Step number 4 is once you complete your journal, you have to post it to the ledger. So every single account that I listed out here, you're going to recognize it in the ledger. And this is where I'm going to teach you how to create your running balance. Okay? So very first thing here is we have our checking account. Okay? So here I'm going to go to my assets, because that's the first thing I recognize is my checking is going to be usually your most readily available form of money, right? It's just in a place where you can go in, deposit, write a check out too. So in this case, I have, if you notice this, you notice that I have a few accounts here that are main accounts. And then underneath those main accounts, it breaks down into specific accounts. So if you kind of pick this up already, if you take a look at your chart of accounts, notice this. This is how I decipher my chart of accounts. You can decipher it however way that you'd like. But my main accounts are going to be consisting of capital letters. Okay? And then my sub accounts, or my to break down my main account, are going to be considered capital letters, but with lowercase letters as well. So in this case, my bank is going to consist of my checking account, my petty cash, and my cash in the register. So that's going to be money that I have in the bank. Okay? But of course, we won't talk about main accounts yet. That's something we're going to introduce you towards the end of the last couple weeks when we do our unadjusted trial balance. I want you to kind of, tidy up your work by shrinking them down and using your main accounts versus your sub accounts. Because if you notice this, right? Look at all this accounts that you have here. If you can clean up or, collapse or, shrink up your information by summing them up into your main accounts, you're going to realize how you have a lot more extra space. But for this, I want you to just, when you journalize everything, you're not going to journalize main accounts all the time. You can for some transactions, but I really generally want you to just journalize any account the way you see it. But when we do our trial balances, that's where I'm going to have you guys either switch from main account to sub accounts. Okay. But since this is our first time looking at this, I just wanted you guys to recognize that each account that is on here, I made indications that this is a main account, this is the sub account, this is a contra account. Okay. So that's just a little heads up there. But notice this, that when we come here, you have the list of every single account, including main and sub account. Okay? So here, our first account that we have is the banking account, but right under it is our checking account. And we're going to post to our ledger exactly how we see it in our journal. So in this case, our first transaction we have here was on June 4th, and we deposited money into the checking account. So once again, your item right here is going to be any note that you want to add in here for you to recognize a transaction has happened. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and write under here that I opened my bank account. Opened bank account. All right? And of course, I made a deposit, right? I've increased my cash flow by debiting my account for the 21,625. Okay? So once again, these can be formatted however you like, whatever style you like. I left it for you guys to be able to pick on your own what you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and format it, and I'm going to use comma style because I generally like this better. Because sometimes those dollar signs can get in the way, and you can mistake this as a 5. So I like to keep it clean and simple. And this way, it automatically allows me to show my dollar signs exactly the way here. Okay. Now here the post reference is going to be a little different. So here I'm going to use my post reference as where and when can you locate this transaction. So this post reference here is going to be your general journal page number. So wherever the transaction has happened, you're going to indicate it here. So as we noticed, right, on my general journal, this is page number 1. So how am I going to reference it? That this transaction for me to open my bank account and for me debiting this 21,625, I can locate this exact transaction in my general journal page number 1. So that's exactly what this reference is. So I'm going to do JG for short for general journal. And of course, I'm just going to put a number 1 since it's general journal page 1. There's only going to be one page 1. There's not going to be multiple page 1s, right? What's the purpose of that? So here it's going to be general journal page 1, and that's my post reference to tell me that this is where the transaction has occurred on this date and exactly what has happened. Okay? All right? So that is that right there. Okay? Now, here's how we can create our running balance. Now, usually that will happen when you have a second entry in here, which I will wait till we do have a second entry in here. So I won't show you the formula today since we're kind of running out of time here. But what I'm going to show you here is that notice this. We have to enter in some kind of bank balance. Usually, rule of thumb is when you start your some balance in any account, right? Your general rule of thumb is you're starting at 0. So here, if I'm entering in a debit balance and my account right now is 0, and I'm increasing it on the debit side, what's my assumption here? That I should have what kind of balance?
An equal balance?
And right, exactly. So the very first transaction is going to equal your whatever debit. So you have a debit, right? So if I started at 0 and I'm increasing my account on the debit side, so therefore I should have $21,625 on the debit side as my beginning balance for this specific account. Okay. Once again, when we move into doing a second transaction, third transaction, fourth transaction, I will show you how to create your running balance. But for now, our assumption is we have no balance. So whatever side we debit or credit on is going to appear on your very top line of your beginning balance. So in this case, I have a debit balance of 21. So therefore, my account right now currently has a 21 debit balance. Okay? Is everyone clear with that?
Yes.
Okay. Because you have nothing to begin with. So therefore, if I increase it on the left side, therefore 0 plus my left side means I'm going to equal on the left side. Okay? And once again, I'll show you the formula tomorrow. So that was our first account. We have to do it for every single account that you see on your journal. So that means the next account that we got to look for is going to be our furniture. Now, if you are using the Word file for this, I would highly recommend you to utilize your find key, okay? Because for the Word document, I attached every single account on there. So you're going to be scrolling for days, okay? But if you can recognize the first things first, right? The Word document, I organized it based on account type, so you can kind of get the general area, right? I believe the first 16 pages are your assets, okay? Then the next 5 pages are your liabilities, etc., all the way to page 35 or 36 or something like that. So that is that. Now, if you are using Excel, you can also use the control find key function as well. Okay, it's control F, and you can locate where to find your account. But of course, this isn't a massive account, because I already divided them up based on account type. So I like to scroll and just find my accounts at that point. But for those who are, want to find it quicker, you can go ahead and highlight section A, right? You need to highlight the section first, and then do your control F key, and then type in at the top the exact name of the account. Okay, that's how you do the control find to locate a specific item in your Excel spreadsheet. Okay, that's, once again, whichever way seems the most easiest, quickest, or fastest way for you to locate each account. And in this case, I've done this for many years now, or for many classes. So I just scroll down because I already know where my general location is. I've memorized the chart of accounts already, so it should be pretty fairly close by if I just scroll down. So I scrolled a little too far down because I'm already at right here. There it is. Oh, sorry. There it is. Furniture. Okay. You can, if you look at my screen, you can reference it saying which row I'm on. That works for you too. But once again, it's a lot of scrolling if you are using the Word document. And if you're printing them out, it's a lot of page flipping. But that's okay. We're here to learn. So I found my furniture account, and I'm going to enter it exactly how I see it in my journal. So once you locate your furniture account, I'm going to enter in my transaction on June 4. And again, you can do whatever the item is. So whatever note that you want to associate it, right? It doesn't have to be exactly what I say, but whatever way that it helps you to know what happened in this transaction. So in this case, I purchased furniture. Okay. You could say that you purchased a business and it came with furniture. Whichever way that you want to associate this transaction with, okay? Post reference, once again, where in the journal can I locate this exact transaction?
GJ page 1.
GJ1, right? And of course, since I acquired furniture, I debited my account for $4,000. Okay, so therefore, I just typed in 4,000. So therefore, what should be my beginning balance in my furniture account? $4,000 right there. So make sure that you're on the correct side. It says debit, and I'm just going to cell reference it because I don't want to type in 4,000. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so that is it. Now, usually what happens when you do, if you'd like, you can sum up your total. So that's what the gray bar is for. But you don't have to do it. It's not mandatory. Just because when you get a running balance, you're gonna see your totals in every single line. Okay, so you don't really necessarily need to do the totals until you're closing out your books. Okay, that's just usually. It's just there if you want to see your total at the end of all your transactions, but it's not necessary if you can see them just through your running balance. Okay, so there you go. I entered in my furniture for $4,000 on the debit and on the normal balance side, on the debit side. Okay, so now the next one I have to locate is going to be my coffee brewer. So once again, if it works better for you, a lot of students have done this too. They actually scroll through the ledger looking at the account number. That these are also in order based on account number 2. So here, if I'm on 1300 and I know that my account for my coffee brewer is 1510, I can just scroll down until I find 1510. And that works just the same exact way too. You don't have to look by account name. You can look by account number 2. So here I scroll too far. Right here, 1500 is my equipment. And what do you know? 1510 is my coffee brewer. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and, since I've located my coffee brewer, I can go ahead and enter in my transaction. So here, I'm going to name this my coffee brewer number 1. Okay, because in this scenario, I'll go ahead and give you a preview. You are going to be purchasing another coffee brewer. So in this case, I want to make sure I indicate this is coffee brewer number 1. Okay, you can say I purchased it, whatever you'd like. Okay. Of course, post reference here is going to be my general journal number 1. All right, I'm still on page 1, and my coffee brewer was worth $1,900. Okay. Of course, if I debited my account for $1,900, therefore, what is my account balance going to be? $1,900 on the debit side. Okay. So now that I have that, let's go ahead and finish up the next transaction. So we have goodwill. So goodwill, right? If you know that this is at the very end, you could just scroll to the very end. For the Word document, it should be end of page 16 or page 15. It should be 16.
33.
Okay. Okay. So here, transaction is 6-4. Anything that you want to write, you could say the purchased business name. Okay. Post reference, once again, is general journal number 1. And we acquired it for $2,100. All right. And I'm going to format this real quick. Okay. So therefore, I should have beginning balance reflecting as $2,100 on the debit side. Okay. All right. Now, next one is going to be my license and permit expense, right? Notice the word here, expense. So it's going to be considered an operating expense. So if you're using the Word document, I believe your expenses start on page 34. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and roll over to my expenses operating on my worksheet. Okay. And of course, I'm going to start from the very top. It's in alphabetical order. So I have advertising, bank fees, freight expense, insurance expense, labor expense. Aha. Now I've located my license and permit expense. So again, your item could be whatever note you'd like to place in here. So in this case, I'm going to write exactly what this entails. So I have court cost. So the court cost was $25. Okay. Nevada license, okay, was for $250. And then of course the city license was for the remaining $100. Okay, and of course post reference, once again, general journal number 1. And because it's an expense that we had to incur for doing business, It's also known as an expense. Therefore, it should be recognized as a debit. Okay. And there we are. I have a debit on my journal, so therefore my balance should reflect at 375. Now, this is also where a lot of room for error happens as well. If you're not looking at your journal and you're just typing it in from memory, you can guarantee you may forget a number, maybe switch a number, fat finger a number, who knows. But this is where you can make your mistakes, especially when transferring from the journal to the ledger. Now, yes, if it works best for you, go ahead and cell reference. Now, let me tell you, because we're using 7 different workbooks with infinite amount of pages on there, with infinite amount of formulas in there, you may get some errorist messages or maybe some errors in there, especially if you don't keep the files in the same folder. Okay, so I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but go for it. If you have a good enough computer that can handle it, go ahead and do it. Okay, it's easier for you because that way you can see if you find a mistake instantly without having to figure it out by matching your journal with your ledger, right? Since you've already cell referenced it. Okay, there you go. Okay, so there's my business and license permit expense. So last but not least, I have to do my credit account, which was for my equity. Since owner's equity is essentially your original investment, so I'm going to go ahead and enter in my date, right? If I go to my equity, right, the first account there, okay, I'm in my item/notes. I'm going to indicate that this was my original investment. Okay. Once again, post reference is going to be your general journal 1. And of course, this time, you need to be very careful because you need to recognize what column you're in, because this is also where you can make your mistake. Everything I've done so far was a debit. This time, in order to reflect this last part here, I need to make sure I'm on the correct side, which I need to indicate that this is on the credit side for $30,000. And of course, if it's on the credit side, therefore, you need to also reflect your account balance on the credit side as well. Okay, so again, that is one of another accounting mistakes that a lot of students do. They accidentally type in the wrong column. And when they do their trial balance, they have the discrepancy right there because they accidentally placed it in the wrong column. Okay, it happens. Okay, and there we have it. Now we completed our journal. We completed entering into the general ledger. Nobody is associated with this, okay? Because this was an internal thing. All we did was go to the bank. We didn't encounter anybody at the bank, except for the bank, of course. But you don't need to fill in any information because we didn't receive any bill from the bank, right? They didn't charge you money for opening a bank account. And if they did, man, you should reconsider what bank you are banking at if they're going to charge you money for that. But yes, so here, there's nobody that's involved. No customer was involved, no vendor was involved, and of course, therefore, we don't need to use our subsidiary ledger today. We were supposed to have time for it, but it is now 4:48, so today we're not going to use it because we're going to stop today. So that was our journalizing our first transaction, and how I want you guys to continue going forth is journal first, ledger after, immediately. And now I know how much money I have in the bank. I have $21,625 in my bank. Why? Because I have a ledger account that tells me that's how much money I have in my bank account. Okay, so any questions so far? So that was our very first transaction.